Hello, I'm Denton Davidson, senior editor for Gold Derby, here with Emmy nominee and two-time Screen Actors Guild Award winner Mandy Moore, who of course plays Rebecca Pearson on NBC's This Is Us. Mandy, we're in the final stretch here of this beloved series. It's come to an end, and as you're going through this farewell process, what has hit you the hardest, and what about This Is Us has changed your life the most? How has your life changed since being a part of it?
Everything. My life has changed exponentially in every possible way. I I'm gonna miss everything. I'm gonna miss opening my email inbox and getting a new script and knowing that it's gonna be full of just extraordinary things for all of us to get to do, and the story that like resonates with us as actors as much as it does with like the audience out there. The challenge of a role like Rebecca, the family that we've made on set, not just our cast, but our crew, the majority of whom have been with us since like the very first season. So it's a lot to say goodbye to. I keep saying that like this job like checks every box if you were like to make this ultimate wish list as an actor of like what would like the dream job look like? This Is Us, is it? I mean, down to the fact that like we all live in Los Angeles and we get to shoot here and like come home and sleep in our own beds at night. Like that just never happens. So I'm gonna miss all of that. I'm not gonna miss 4 hours of going through the age makeup process. I feel like I have sufficiently covered that and I don't ever need to do that again. But my life just looks inherently different. I mean, I had kind of come up like against 4 failed pilot seasons, pilots that got taken into various stages of development and then just like never came to fruition, never got picked up. And I was sort of like at this crossroads in life before I got cast on the show, thinking I've been doing this since I was 15 and I'm 31 now, and like maybe that part of my life is over and I've found success and I should just pat myself on the back and be grateful and like figure out what the next chapter is going to look like. Maybe I'll move back to Florida, maybe I'll where I grew up, and maybe I'll go back to school, maybe I'll become a journalist. Like I just was sort of like I think the universe is trying to tell me with this sense of rejection like maybe it's time to move on. And then This Is Us came around and I remember thinking like, oh, this script is really special. It's really extraordinary. I should throw my name in the hat in the ring there and just like, see if something happens. And then, I got cast somehow. But even at that point, it's like the pilot being what it was, I had no idea that the story we were going to be telling, the scope of the story, the breadth of the story, and that like Rebecca Pearson, although she's just, a smaller part of the pilot, is like, she is the matriarch of this family. And we were not going to be telling a linear story. We were going to jump around in time. And I would have the gift of getting to play this woman from like 16 to 85, like in every different chapter of her life. I think I would have been so daunted by that in the beginning of all this and auditioning for something like this that I don't know if I would have auditioned. I think I would have probably taken a step back and gone, I don't know if I have the bandwidth for this. Like it's way too scary of a prospect.
And it does feel like that. I mean, at the beginning, Jack really is the focus, the center of the family. And then as time goes by, we see now in the season end, the last season, that's Rebecca. Like she's the other goalpost on the other side. So,
Yeah.
and this isn't also, you've done a lot of TV roles, a lot of film, but this is a character that you were able to sit with for the most amount of time. What is that like to be able to sit and really get to know a character like that?
I, again, was daunted by the prospect of, I remember when the show got picked up, turning to Milo going, how do you do 13 episodes of television? Because I'd never done that before. I was like, I was like, wow, you must really like pat yourself on the back when you're done with like a season of television, because that just seems so crazy. So the fact that like, all of us have had 106 episodes to build these characters and like you said, sit with them and tell this story, and to have had an audience that has come along on this journey with us from the beginning and allowed us to tell really interesting stories from the beginning as well. Like the very first season, I remember it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna like spend an entire episode with characters that you met briefly in the pilot and probably didn't even realize. Like you're gonna have a whole storyline about this firefighter who finds a baby and at his firehouse, and like people allowed us, like people came along for the ride and trusted us and were vulnerable enough to be like, yes, we're in your hands, you just like take us on this journey. That's incredible. Like I don't think I expected us to be able to have the opportunity to tell those kinds of stories in the way that we have over 6 seasons. So yeah, it's been a real gift, and one that I know is like once in a career. And I think we all knew that like very early on, like, oh, this is that one of those projects. Like this is so special and it comes around if you're lucky once in a lifetime. So like let's all hold on tight and enjoy the ride together. There won't ever be another job like this. I'm already sort of letting myself off the hook. Like I'll never be this fulfilled and this satisfied with something again. And that's okay. Like I'm so grateful to have had this, and I'll always have it and be able to tap into it. But whatever comes next, whatever that looks like, is going to just be something else altogether.
Well, I'm of a certain age, so my memory of you is always going to start with, TRL, and
Nice.
Candy. And so you were part of this pop brigade with like Britney and Christina, and it was just
Oh yeah.
craziness. And you were just
Yeah.
launched out there at 15 years old. What do you remember about that? Like, what was that like for you at the time? And do you think you were prepared for it looking back? Like how does it feel now when you look back at that 15-year-old?
How could you be prepared for that? Like I literally went from freshman year of high school watching In Sync. Like I remember very specifically their Christmas like record that they had out. Like I remember watching the music video for like Merry Christmas, like before going to school in the morning. And then 6 months later, I was opening up for them on their big like summer amphitheater tour. So life was a really bizarre ride at 15. And I guess the only thing that prepared me was like, I have great parents. Like my parents are fantastic and they helped me stay super grounded and they were with me. They were never my managers. Like they just wanted to be mom and dad. And I think that like allowed me to still be a kid. Like I was allowed to be a teenager at a time where I think, most people probably would have pushed their limits a little bit and gone out to the clubs and lived a more adult life. And I was still very much allowed to like go to the mall, go to amusement parks, go to homecoming with my friends. And yet I also did live this adult life where I had responsibilities and I had a job. And it's like even at that age though, I understood like the dichotomy of like, oh, I just put this hat on during this time and this hat on during this time. But I think that duality like allowed me to have a balance in my life and maintain a balance. And, to be 38 years old, still talking to you about having some semblance of a career, like it's all owed to mom and dad and the way all of this sort of transpired in the beginning. But it was weird. I was just in New York and I was walking with my 1-year-old and my husband and like pointed out the 1515 Broadway building where MTV was, whatever. And I was like, this whole Times Square used to be filled with people with posters and like looking up at the windows to see what pop star was like visiting TRL that day. Like and I saw Carson on the Today Show. Like it's just such a strange world to be like 20 plus years removed from that. And it does feel like yesterday in some ways, but also like a million years ago too.
But even back then, a lot of singers veer off into different acting. Even then you were starting to get roles in film and television, and you were the one getting, positive reviews for acting. It was rare for some of the pop singers. So was that always a plan for you? Like, did you always want to act, or was that an opportunity that came along? What came first, like film, TV, or music for you?
I always wanted to act. I did musical theater when I was a kid. So I just thought, whatever I do in life, I thought it was going to be Broadway. That was like my ultimate dream. I was like, I hope I get to do a little bit of both. But I will say to that comment of like people sort of responding positively, I think it's in part because I wasn't famous. I wasn't famous in the same way that some of my contemporaries were, which I think makes it so much more difficult to transcend like going from one medium to the next. I think because I didn't have the same degree of success and notoriety, like I was allowed to kind of, I was given a little bit more permission to kind of disappear into some of the roles and things that I was allowed to do in a way that like you watch someone that is so mega famous, it's hard to disassociate. Like, oh, I know what they had for breakfast. I know who they're dating. Like, you know, all the different like details of their life. And I think at that time, because we didn't have social media too, like my life just wasn't presented in that same way. So it really was a great thing because it allowed me to like kind of seamlessly evolve into, you know, acting and not have people question it as much, which was great. And also like the kinds of roles, like I started out in film, and the first project that I was part of was The Princess Diaries, and I got to play like the villain or whatever in that movie. Hello, I got to spend time with Julie Andrews. Like,
Yes.
doesn't get any better than that. And I was like surrounded by a bunch of kids my age, which was so fun. I'm like, oh, this is what making movies is. This is like being in a, you know, like theater production. This is so much fun. I like get to pal around with, you know, stay in a hotel with other kids my age and like run around and be, you know, 16. So that was fun. And then that evolved into A Walk to Remember, and just the ball sort of got rolling from there. But yeah, it also feels like another lifetime ago, but it was fun to kind of juggle between doing the music stuff still and then segueing into acting.
And this season on This Is Us, you direct episode 9, The Hill. So what's that like to get on the other side of the camera? I know it's very collaborative at This Is Us, and other co-stars have been allowed to direct as well. So what was that like for you? How much fun was that? Was it daunting?
You know, it's all a testament to Dan Fogelman, who came to us as a cast at the beginning of the season, was like, what does everyone want to do? And people raised their hand to write, Susan and Chrissy, who you just spoke to, and a handful of us, you know, sort of raised our hands to direct. And he allowed all of us this opportunity in this last season to do a little bit of everything. And it was amazing. I mean, Milo and Justin and I got to direct this trilogy, our last trilogy. We've done it twice previous in different seasons. And I don't think it could have been done with other directors, just the logistics of it, because it ended up taking like 2 months or something. It was crazy. It was like making an indie movie. But it was, I mean, I got to direct my first project ever, an episodic television, direct like, you know, Chris Sullivan and Chrissy Metz in this like remarkable standalone episode that just was, the writing was so extraordinary. And I got to just watch my friends from a completely different vantage point. Like I've spent 6 years obviously like looking in their eyeballs and working with them in a scene, which is in and of itself, you know, such a gift and so much fun. And they're both so ridiculously talented, but being on that other side is wholly different. Like I just was mesmerized. I really got lost in like just their performances and watching them. And like you said, it is an incredibly collaborative experience on our show. We are a very well-oiled machine, and like our crew just knows what they're doing, and they're so wonderful. So it felt like a much easier transition than I'm sure most people are afforded, moving from like the acting side into the directing side. But I can't wait to do it again. I'm tempering my expectations because I know nothing will quite be this experience of feeling as comfortable. And, you know, look, all of us actors know these stories. We know these characters, even the characters we're not playing, obviously. So it was, I'll never know the sort of inside track to whatever I work on next as a director in quite the way that like I just felt so connected to these stories. And I'm really, really proud of that episode, and especially so proud of Chris and Chrissy and Chrissy's writing. Like it's just, yeah, it's what a gift we were all given in this last season to kind of wear different hats too.
And I have to ask about the Forever Now, which Rebecca sings at Kate's wedding. It went #1 on iTunes. I mean, like it
So
just
crazy.
exploded after that episode. What was that process like for you, recording that and performing it on set? Does that sort of feel like all your worlds are coming together when you get to perform on This Is Us?
Yes and no. The funny thing is, so Sid Khosla, our composer, has become really friendly with my husband Taylor, and they've written a couple of songs. They wrote a song in the third season that Rebecca sings as like a demo when she's on her road trip out to California and pursuing a singing career. They wrote a song for Jack Jr. that when he's like a big rock star later in life in the future, that he's playing a sold out show and sings the song. And so Sid and Taylor again collaborated on this song, and it's obviously a take on our theme that plays at the end of the during the end credits of the show every episode. But they put these beautiful words to it that are, just completely encapsulate life and Rebecca's life and the story of our show. And it was a pretty emotional experience to record it. But it's strange because it's like it's not me singing, it's in character. And this was something I was very nervous about as well, like again going into the details of talking to like our Alzheimer's storyline, and each episode sort of knowing the writers had done their due diligence but wanting to do my homework as well, like talking with this incredible neurologist who's helped us throughout this series with this particular storyline, like asking her very pointedly about like the reality of somebody who's sort of this deep into a diagnosis of dementia and cognitive decline. Like, would it be possible? And we talked about like, the fact that we all have a certain cognitive reserve, and for something that someone has done repeatedly in life, it's very viable that they would be able to, to be able to tap into this skill set that they have used repeatedly over the course of their life. And music obviously being a through line in Rebecca's life, it was very, viable that this would be something she'd be able to rise to the occasion and do. But still, like, we did a pre-recorded version of it just in case, like, not knowing the location and the logistics, like, would it be possible to do it live? That's what I wanted. But so we did a version of that in the studio, and then we sang like a more of a studio, I guess, like Mandy version, but not, I didn't feel very connected to myself in that sense. But then on the day we ended up getting to perform it live for the scene, they filmed everyone's, just the way the location was and the cameras and the room was quite small. They filmed everybody's reaction first. So I got to play it a bunch for everybody. But then, like 10 takes later, they turned the cameras around on me, and the day was like, we were running late. And so it's like, I only got to do 2 takes of it, which I was a little like, oh man, like we've built this whole day up and I only get to do this quickly. That's fine. But it was a really, really special moment, like special knowing how special it was for the character, but then getting to like, it was the theme song of the show and getting to play it for like my friends and seeing everybody's reaction to it. It's like, it all, like, the song means something, it means a lot to all of us. So it was just a very fitting moment, like again tying up this final season of the show.
And real quick, you have an album In Real Life. That's your latest one. So
Yeah.
what can people expect? Are you going to be out performing at all, or?
Yeah, we're going to go on tour.
Okay. When does that start, and what are the details?
June 10th, our first show is in Atlanta. We're going on tour. We're doing like 25 shows. My husband's in my band. He and I wrote the whole record together. It's like I'm excited because I'm like, I have some sort of emotional catharsis to like process the end of the show. I have like somewhere to sort of compartmentalize and put all my feelings instead of just like being in the fetal position at home, which is probably what I would be doing if I didn't have this tour to look forward to. But yeah, it's nice to like have some new music out in the world, and I miss that side of my life. And I haven't toured in 15 years, which is wild, since 2007. So to be able to do that, and we're bringing our baby with us, and it's just going to be like a fun, weird family summer adventure. But yeah, so I'll do that for a couple of weeks and then come home and just hang out and figure out what comes next.
Well, NBC airs the series finale of This Is Us on Tuesday, May 24th. I'm sure everyone will be tuning in. Mandy, good luck to you and the entire cast and crew at this year's Emmys. To
Thank
viewers
you.
watching, head over to goldderby.com, make your Emmy predictions, check out more great interviews with top contenders. And Mandy, again, so great to chat with you today.
Thanks for your time.